Thanks, everyone. We are here speaking about rollouts, a challenge that we all have. But Michael, thank you for the opportunity to get us all together. Really appreciate this as owners. We all watch each other say, and it always looks, how do they make it look so easy? But I think we all know together the decisions that are made, the tough challenges we all have in rolling out the challenges we have in front of us. So we wanted to talk today with the mix of the panel we have and the different situations they have with their companies, looking at rollouts and what does that mean? And I think last night Emily pointed out, the definition of a rollout. So as Michael mentioned, rollouts could be anything from rolling out new stores and growth, similar to what Chris is doing with Shinola, or refreshes, similar to what Keith is doing. And Steve, you're also rolling out new initiatives in stores. So we just wanted to get an idea, maybe from everybody, who here is more in the rollout new store growth mode? Anybody?
Yes.
Wow, nice. Who would be more in the refreshing, you have a good set of stores, maybe not growing, but now your 7-year cycle to 10-year, whatever, and refreshing all the stores? Oh, that's about equal.
Interesting.
Right? And then who here has a number of initiatives in a store, new product launch, like a new product launch, new initiative that needs to be rolled out across your fleet? Okay? Yeah. Equal for everybody.
Right.
So just wanted to get into it, introduce everybody. Steve Lamontagne with Walgreens. Has a few stores, over 8,000, I think?
Yeah, last time we checked.
Yeah.
All depends on Irma.
Okay, so Steve sits there without a blink of an eye. Says about 1,000 stores have been impacted with the hurricanes. Which...
Yeah, this time last week we had about 1,000 stores that were closed. So.
All right. Wow. Keith Donovan with Microsoft. He's got 8,000 stores, just over 100.
We've got just over 100 in the North America.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
And Chris Delusky?
Delusky.
Yep. And you guys have been growing for the last few years,
right.
Continually moving up the chain.
Right, 30 domestic. We actually have one in Toronto and one in London, England.
Right.
So
right.
32 in the portfolio so far.
And myself, we represent a number of companies. And so, I can reach into some of those who, whether they're expanding around the globe, internationally, whether they're refreshing, and they're, some of our clients, their refresh models are, complete new builds, and then the initiatives that some of them have similar to what Steve's going through. So I just want to, start, and maybe with yourself, because you're closest to me then, is how you look at an initiative going across, or with Irma, something that has to be taken care of with 8,000 stores. And as you come off the gas from maybe opening new stores into a new initiative or a new care product that's going through the stores, how is your team set up and how do you look at that?
Yeah, it's interesting, Bob. So, I think unlike some of the others, and that's why we're here with the diversity of the portfolios, a lot of these initiatives come to us from a lot of different ends, right? So they might be new, I'll call it growth initiatives, rolling out new beauty into 3,000 stores, right, at a clip of about 150 a week. But we also have an aging portfolio, right? So those 8,000 stores, if you look at the high growth that Walgreens had, they were opening a store every 17 days, and those are all coming of age. So it takes on a completely different meaning when we think about refreshing, I'll call it the base portfolio. And I think a big thing for us is the teams and the partners that we set up. So both the internal help, as well as a lot of the extended partners, some of which are in the audience, great partners with us, who become an extension of our team to actually drive out those initiatives.
Yeah, and we're going to want to talk about that team more. Keith, with where you guys are, where you're at, you crossed over that 100 store mark, you hit all the big locations. We had the pleasure of working with you as well. Yeah. How do you look at your program now, where you are?
We've rapidly got to 100 stores, built the teams that could roll that out. We took a single team approach, so we took one team across the country and built out all those stores. And now, first store is about 8 years old, so we're rapidly getting into a refresh cycle. And we're finding that the teams aren't the right teams. right? The team that built the stores for a new rollout aren't necessarily the right team for a refresh. So we're really thinking about how the teams have to change. And then layer on top of that, Microsoft's rolling out new initiatives, new product launches, new experiences
Right.
across the chain. And those are always time constrained. So then you say, okay, how do you maintain the quality, get it done as quickly as possible? So we're in a really we're an inflection point right now for the portfolio to figure out how to best satisfy the retail customers that we support.
And Chris, you're still in growth mode, right? You guys are still opening great eclectic places.
I think part of the challenge that we face is that you have an internal team. We're in the fashion business. Our refresh and remodel cycle is much shorter than what I would call a little like traditional retail. Part of the challenge dealing with that is how do you integrate the team with understanding right from the beginning is how that product is placed, how that customer experience is affected by just very simple decisions. And it's not the easiest person to find who understands that.
So you're
That's a big challenge for, I would say anybody, but us,
in particular.
Right.
Knowing your product, your internal team, they do the womb to tomb with design included, right? And so you need a development team that is a little more understanding or passionate to the brand. How does that team's dynamic set up internally with yourself?
And we talked about this last night. It obviously starts from the very top. These guys have a very unique and distinct vision of not only the product, the way we display it, the way the fixtures look, the way the cabinetry, the flooring, the paint color, we don't like that paint color, we're gonna change that paint. These decisions have to trickle down to a flexible, understanding team that really is customer experience focused. And for us, sometimes our customer is the ops team. Their customer is the general public. We're fortunate to not have a publicly traded business, so we can remain a little bit risk accepting, but that team has to understand how we need to deliver those experiences. And I think I was telling Michael, our job, sometimes we're part sociologist, part psychiatrist, part leader, part spreadsheet operator. It's a very difficult challenge. Then you throw design and everything else on top of that, and it's a blender.
But they all work together, right? Design and your development
Absolutely,
team have
right,
to be
from
close.
the very, very top and right in the beginning.
Right. And does function follow form a little bit? Is design, we all know the triangle of success, right? Quality, cost, schedule. So at some point, sometimes one leg gets to be a little longer. Do you feel the design drives the development, or, and Keith, I also know
ours, for us, absolutely.
Absolutely with you.
Design
with you guys.
design drove the design. I would say our cost leg got a little out of whack. And one of the clients, we didn't pay enough attention to in the beginning, honestly, was the facilities team.
Yeah, yep.
It was the design team, it was the product teams, it was the experiences team, it was creating that brand. We didn't have a brand, we didn't have a retail brand 9 years ago. So it was all about proliferation in the market, creating the brand. And if we did it over again, we'd certainly do things differently. But we got to where we wanted to be, which was market saturation at about 100 stores in North America. So it's.
And Steve, with you guys with thousands of stores, does a design initiative come across you and say we have, and then does it go across all stores? Is it regionalized? Is it certain? How do you differentiate how that's rolled out across your fleet?
Really, if we think about new initiatives, let's say a beauty rollout, if you will, it's not one size fits all. So although, Walgreens is I'll call it a functional brand, right? Lots of stores across the US, et cetera. But we definitely think about it from the customer back, right? So who is the customer who's going to accept those products? And how do we tailor our design work and the implementation around that to that particular customer?
So on that customer, is it still regionalized, or is it certain areas that might get a slightly different design, or is it the same design rolled out?
It's generally the same design. Again,
Okay.
pretty functional brand. So There is something to be said about some level of consistency in Walgreens with those number of stores. But you may see a certain level of, just to stay with beauty for a second, you'll see the same level of beauty across those stores that's most important to that particular customer.
And you were saying last night, and I see it even within our own team, right? You were saying you have a certain team that you have that's going to go out and build the new Walgreens every 17 days, right? They know how to pump that same design. Although some things are coming that may not work for that team. And is it a different internal team that you use when you're trying to roll out then, 3,000 or, across 3,000 or 8,000 stores at initiative?
Yeah, I absolutely think that what I found is that the skill set that it takes on the rollout side, especially when you're moving at warp speed, requires a different level of mindset. You talk about sometimes spreadsheets, sometimes sociologists, right? So both are really, really important, but it takes a slightly different skill set to really be dealing with, as I said, 150 stores a week, let's say, in a 4-day timeline to roll out big major initiatives, and you want to get to completion, right? So this notion of thinking about rinse and repeat, and quite frankly, how you think about that extended network of GCs, contractors, and whatnot on the ground becomes really, really important about keeping it tight,
right.
As opposed to focusing on one particular project.
And so now if we think about then, as you said, GCs and how you do that, right? Both in my career, I came from the large themed attraction where it took us 2.5 to 3 years to build, some themed attraction, which was great. And retail is in that fast fly mode. And there's a difference, right? You have to have that difference. How do you do it with, again, now the partners, all the suppliers and partners out here? Do you look at regionalizing the partners in an area, or going in and saying, okay, that contractor is going to get us the best price because they know the sub-market? Or do you create relationships which then maybe take you around the country in North America?
I'm going to take the easy answer on that one and say it depends. So it truly really does depend on the individual initiative, right? So whether or not you're refreshing, I'll call it base building type of work, versus initiative rollouts, which have heavy fixtures, lots of rollouts, right? We have to think about how do we appear to the customer in a short period of time. So
in making those fixtures then, right, if there's thousands of them, you must have to have a few fixture partners to be able to be successful in hitting those timeframes, I would think.
Yeah, again, it depends. Some of this stuff that you can just stockpile, keep in warehouses, and think about a distributed model to get out to stores in the U.S. is one thing. When we think about some other key rollouts where we own the intellectual property, we've done the design, maybe we're buying raw materials and actually having manufacturing in China, we think about it a bit differently as well.
Sure. Keith, I know with yourself, right? I know with that program, same question, for everyone to know, because you guys are a high quality, your stores are precision, and how did you guys attack that, quality versus cost in regions?
We're small. We're small enough now, or we were, that we ramped up new development teams to vendor partners to roll out those stores. So that allowed us to maintain the quality and get the speed in terms when we were opening 20 stores a year back in the day. The lesson learned that we realized when we flipped to the refresh model was, as I said, those teams don't work. If we're rolling out a new product and it needs to be in for holiday and we don't get approval of it until September 1st, well, now I've got 60 days to roll something out across 100 stores. Recently we had a particular vendor, great particular craftsman that we used. We put him on the road for 45 days to go to every store and roll it out, and that it burnt him out. He doesn't work on our account anymore. So that we didn't learn from that. So
knowing when you have a great vendor who's rolling out the 20 stores doing a great thing may not be the right choice for the fast turnaround.
And we've tried the regional approach on the refresh cycle. Learning curve's tough, and I wish there was a way we could have diversified the rollout build earlier in the process, so that would have led to some diversity in the refresh process. But we're getting through that learning curve. It's just, I wish there was a way to have ramped up the learning curve earlier before we actually needed the performance out of the people. And my team internally as well, we had people, as you guys development people roll it out every 17 days, the big build, but refresh is different.
Yeah, and in the refresh and going in the regionalized model, and knowing that because you're trying to hit them all, like you said, do you give up any quality? And I know it's harder because, again, we go through the same thing, and it becomes a little Groundhog Day trying to teach over and over and over. Do you feel anything's lost? Or how do you guys look at that? Is it worth regionalized? Do you think you give up quality? Is it a better price? How do you evaluate those decisions?
It is a little less expensive. You do sacrifice the learning and the quality, and maybe not quality. It's just the experience to know how to navigate our systems.
Right.
Because we're not an easy company to work with, internally as a vendor. So that they were more difficult because of the learning curve, right? So then
Right,
people
'cause again,
think,
for
hey,
everyone
using this particular partner's, that's really hard. Why is that so hard when this person's really easy? It's like, well, this is only their third store. This guy did 100 stores. This firm this is on their second store. So it's getting leadership to understand that and bringing them along with the process, and hopefully you don't lose too much quality for quite a bit of savings on the cost side.
Yeah, again, for everyone, all the internal departments and things that have to tie within your store that are not seen, and how that store is broken up with all your technology that's in the store and everything is pretty unique for anyone who's coming in for the first time.
Right.
Yeah, so Chris, the same with yourself. Do you guys, I forgot how, I know, is it more regionalized? Do you look at, and then amazing company, great American story, right? Of course, love the product, right?
Right.
And you always have a new product. There's always something. It's watches, it's bicycles, it's leather goods. It's now, as you were telling me last night, headphones.
Right, audio and headphones,
Yeah,
exactly.
that's brilliant, right? So we have some new initiative that must be coming. And how's the internal team or the external partners, how do you look at that?
I'm a huge fan of regional. I came from a larger rollout business. We focus now, the Shinola team, there may be a few architects. We don't prototype plans because really that's just not what we do. Every store is different. We may center around I call it 1.5 fixture guys. We do have, like you said, that distributed model of all the little fixtures and things that display the product, but the larger wall fixtures, the floor fixtures that we have built custom, we have made in Detroit. I prefer to work with smaller regional GCs, and I have a huge place in my heart for family businesses.
Yeah.
These guys are dedicated, they understand the business, maybe they've been doing it for a while, and as you find those people, you keep them very close because they care about their business, and then I think in turn that culturally moves to they care about our business, our delivery, and our product and the quality.
And in the quality and with the smaller folks, because again, when you get great partners that are smaller or, do you have enough to be able to feed them? Again, I'm thinking of one of my own experiences going down to an area, very large retailer, not here, right? Jewelry retailer that went to a region with a one-off contractor, and it was a struggle, right? They struggled in that area for the one, so there was no relationship. Where, as you're saying, if you can give them a few stores, you build that relationship, they get to know your brand, so you're regionalizing but still growing a partnership as opposed to a one-off, because a one-off could be, correct me if I'm wrong, can't that be brutal?
It can be a disaster,
right.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And we've had maybe 2 of those since that I'm aware of, that it was, maybe it was the distance from HQ, or maybe somebody internally wasn't handling their job, or maybe this guy just wasn't interested in delivering anything.
Right.
And once you get that kind of perfect storm, we really had to sit back and look at how are we doing this business? Is it a national guy? Is it regional people? Is it our own team? How are we going to do this? And I think that the challenge of anybody rolling out new remodels, refreshes, you really have to consider those factors as to what, and again, I'm going to go right back to it, what is the end goal of how are you entertaining or developing that customer experience?
Yeah, and yourselves, and Keith, yourself, and Steve, I don't know your program as well, but help everyone, or help me understand all your fixturing, all your internal stuff. Now, do you buy that through the GC? Do you guys hold the control and buy that and assign it to them? How do you look at some of that owner furnished items, and how do you deal with that internally?
We have sort of a partnership with our marketing team. The rule was, if it sits on the floor, it's mine. If it sits on the table, it's theirs. So it was sort of that was the division, right? And so you think of all the little things that the computers sit on, and the signage, the signage things, and all the smaller stuff, right? Is marketing. They take care of it. I still pay for it, but they take care of it.
So it's still within your budget?
It's still within my budget,
Yeah.
but they manage that and ship it to the store. And all that stuff goes in as sort of part of the last mile, in terms of getting ready for the opening. And when merchandise comes in, it's all part of that. And so that's when I hand it over to the ops team, and
So your video walls, your fixtures, your, all those components, are those wrapped up under one package to a GC, or do you have multiple packages that your teams manage that then you coordinate or assign under your GC? How do you handle that?
Fixtures, so sitting on the floor, and fixtures are direct with Microsoft.
Direct with yourself?
Yeah, and then we have a GC, but we pay the GC to oversee the installation. So just from a supervision perspective.
Any of the installed fixtures, and we actually do a national floor covering vendor, the GC is just their site super, he coordinates their schedule and delivery, and then they install, for example, everything except the cabinetry. We actually manufacture and install we obviously purchase that package and have it installed for the GC, but everything else is.
So standardizing. Your model probably standardizes across thousands of stores. I know, Keith, you definitely, to this point, standardize. Shinola, not so much.
No, not one bit.
You guys, you're pretty eclectic in your designs.
Right.
And how do you guys see the decisions that were made? Again, cost, control, design, going into a new area, being eclectic with that neighborhood, or feeling of whether you're in San Francisco or something, where I think your designs are, we're setting a brand, and if you walk into a Microsoft store, whether it's in San Francisco or Australia where you open, it should look relatively, you should know the brand. Is that correct?
It is. It's a challenge when you have snowflakes, right?
Yeah.
If you get into a 30-foot store and it's the same 30-foot store in every mall, and it is truly standardized, that leads you down a path. We're in a number of stores. I'd say there's probably 30% of the portfolio is a significant snowflake compared to the other stores, and so that just leads to a lot more work. And Chris, I could imagine addressing snowflakes in a more meaningful way might get you to a better operating model rather than forcing, because we're forcing our standard plano, we're forcing our standard merchandise into all these snowflakes, and it's a challenge for the teams. But you find that
Well, I think
positive?
that there is the constant struggle between the art and science of, we have our planners, they know that in our business, 5 watches fit in this cube, and I need to have 80 SKUs on the floor at all times, and I need this and I need that, and then the design team comes in like, I want a wall that all the pieces move in and out at different ways, and then the lights are gonna do this, and really, I'm only gonna let you put 5 handbags on that wall, even though that fixture has 75 different shelves and is gonna cost you $150,000 to build, but I really only want you to display 5 things on it at a time. That's the challenge between the art and science, and even though we have been kind of, I would say, slightly diving toward, retail centers, that even when we get into that particular room, we're going to try to discover something that we can completely exploit for design's sake. It's maybe an ice flake. It'll take a little bit longer to melt or whatever, but it's like, the challenge that our creative director puts in front of us all the time is you've got to have something unique. That's what we do, and that's how we're going to try to do it.
And again, your team,
even though it may be prototypical
Right.
at the end of the day.
Right, there are definitely personalities, knowing, coming from our past as well, there are definitely personalities that can build those snowflakes. You have that personality. Then when you get into a rollout, it's a different personality, right? Structure, procedure, pump it out, not good for me. It gives no structure whatsoever. Steve, I can't even put my head around 8,000 stores. So do you have a huge procurement department? Is it a purchasing? Once an initiative, how do you guys do it internally and with external? You already let us know with external partners, but how do you keep it organized more from a program management perspective as a project management perspective?
Well, I want to tie it a little bit to your question about snowflakes because we're far from standardized, I can tell you that. So I would say that 50% of our estate is actually, call it some form of snowflakes. If we think about left entrance, right entrance, there's probably 12 different flooring types depending upon generational, when the stores were built, what's the brand package that they had within them. So there's a lot of complexity even when we think about that. So we've got, I would say, about 3,000 to 4,000 snowflakes, as I call it.
Wow, interesting.
That requires us to do drawings, design docs, understand the differences, have site surveys performed, because unfortunately, we actually don't know what's in every store.
And they're your stores.
Yeah, and they're our stores. And so
how important the site survey is.
Just that process of actually getting to a point of knowing what you have to try to figure out what you're actually going to do becomes a real trick for us within our business. And I think to your point on teams, really, really interesting. We really try to keep a balance. I mean, we could never, it just wouldn't make sense for us to have on staff a team that could handle all of the rollouts. And that's really, I think, where a bit of the partnerships come into play. So we have a great solid base of folks who are there, I'll call it program directors, who own the initiative, own that rollout from end to end, soup to nuts, right, cradle to grave, if you will, right through punch, right through making sure that things get paid. We've got a great relationship. We have a very large internal group procurement function, which actually is a global function with our partners in Boots as well. And so wherever we can try to harmonize some of the specifications, not so easy to explain to the folks in London that UL certification means something here in the US, and they look at you cross-eyed and you go, okay, this is just not going to work out. But so you have to work through the nuances of that. But the base design work, if you will, for some fixtures for rollout of, let's say, a global brand like Number 7 within our business is a place where we can come together and do that. But largely, we do a lot of our own sourcing. We have goods not for resale distribution that actually sits within the store development team, which is interesting. It's not a supply chain function because we're the heaviest user of that.
Of it, yeah.
So we actually end up owning it. We get to a point where some of the folks within my group would start to point and go, well, they didn't get me the stuff on time, so therefore I couldn't install it, and therefore I couldn't keep schedule and budget and that kind of thing. I said, okay, well,
guess what? You bought it.
we're gonna,
Right.
yeah.
Right.
So it's like we're all one big happy family, and we really have to think about that way with our partners as well. And when I say partners, are external partners, and I think not just for us here on the stage. I think for all of you to understand that, quite frankly, size does matter, and the kind of partners that you deal with, and this is probably the biggest nuance of my job, is making sure that we're not setting up companies to fail, whether that's a program firm, whether it's a GC, whether it's an individual contractor. So we've, to your point of burnout, we've taken very, very good regional players we've had a great long-lasting relationship, and they say, I want more, I want more, I want more. And we give them more, and we kill them.
Yeah.
And that's probably one of the biggest nuances of making sure that you're really having honest and transparent dialogue with those partners to make sure that you're setting both folks up to win. Because it doesn't do you any good, obviously, if they fail and you're pointing and stuff, you still under-delivered on your initiatives and that kind of thing. The other piece of that, I think, is, which is key, is get to know the folks that are actually on your account. And I'm looking at Steve Pollard with JLL, a great partner of ours. And he and I, a couple of years ago, had a discussion. I said, when you put somebody on the team that's going to be associated with our account in our building, I'd actually like to interview them. They have to feel like an extension of my team culturally, and the approach have the same sense of urgency, right? And when you talk about, quality, speed, that becomes a key component. We win together and we fail together.
Yeah, absolutely. They need to feel part of the team. I think all the external partners, you would agree, the contract, the suppliers, if they feel part of the team then we're all delivering the same thing. That is the best. I mean, we all know when we finish a great product, you try to think back, why was that one so successful? What made it so successful?
I like to take credit for it personally.
as we knew you would, right? But it usually boils down to the team, right? It's the people. It's the people that you work with that makes it the best. Everyone looks at, these great companies like, my God, I'd love to work with Shinola, Microsoft, Walgreens. But when you boil down to it, it's the people and how the people all get together that really delivers a great product. You could have all the process and procedures and rules set in place, but if people don't gel, I think those are the ones that we struggle with the most.
Well, and further even to that, one of the first things I did when I got there was get a development program, web-based software to allow for that both accountability and communication. We're utilizing a platform that allows the most current drawings to be in everybody's face. For our internal team, the most current budget, what we're projecting, how the cash flow is going to run over the life cycle of that product. I guess for you guys that kind of go like that. But,
no, that's great.
And there's a lot to dealing with that kind of external and internal gelling of that communication process. Hopefully the people are all getting along, but I think really what's important when you're doing this is that information is most current and sitting in everybody's lap at the same time. Everybody knows what everybody's working on. And I think that's a huge part of that team concept. Some of them are strewn about all over the United States, even worldwide, and you've got to be able to effectively show what everybody's working on at the same time.
Right. No, that's a great point. I know a lot of folks, and I'm sure there's a lot of questions out there of folks trying to struggle to find that, right? That we're in a technology, we're walking around with these little computers in our pockets, and we all tend to do this program, project management, delivery, and as owners, right now, it works for suppliers and GCs, and it seems to work for them in submittals, and it's always a struggle with owners of what is that magic sauce of technology, and to hear that you actually are able to integrate it, and use it well, where everyone can go in and see something. Yourselves, do you with all those 8,000 stores, or do you still do it on a napkin?
No, we've graduated beyond a napkin. It's the size of a tablecloth.
Okay,
Bob, and a big fat Sharpie. We definitely have opportunities with technology as a business, right? And we were talking a bit about this last night after dinner. Technology platforms become stale after a while, right? So you get to a point that you have to refresh them, you have to institute new things. In the case of us, with so much stuff going on, the biggest thing that makes me break out in cold sweats when I think about doing something new is, how do I turn it off and actually get everything loaded into a new technology platform and keep the wheels on the bus? Becomes a big issue. But I think having line of sight is key. We ended up using, I'll give you an example, last weekend you talked about, a bunch of stores closed, and we started to see these tickets that started to come in for damage and repairs for stores, right? As soon as people could access, and they were literally coming in at hundreds at a time. So by Monday morning, we had, I think, 3,200 tickets that were in. And we made sure that we actually utilized that same platform that we do for rollouts to allow for visibility, right? We didn't know how to assign them. We actually didn't know the scope of work defined, but we knew that we had to actually get it to a point of visibility so people knew that store 123 had a ticket that was related to glass blowout or roof, leak or whatever the case may be, and then we could actually assign functions. And by Tuesday, you get to a point where you've got 3,200, 3,500 tickets in the system, and you can now start to assign that stuff out. And that's when I really realized that, quite frankly, the power of having that technology platform that you could turn on in a second, right? Because we didn't have time to think about it.
Yeah.
We just knew that we had to get it to work.
Now, Keith, you're a technology company.
Well, you'd
you
think
must
we'd
have
have
some
the holy
amazing.
grail. Well, you'd think,
Right.
but there's a general feeling at Microsoft, why buy something when you can just build it yourself? And that tends to be, that's not good. It's so candidly, I'll say, I wish I could just go buy an off the products, off the shelf products, but we tend to overcomplicate things being a development or a technology company.
So you're moving faster than the technology can.
And one of the ways I've gotten around that is I leverage the partners. So we've got JLL does our new store rollout, and JLL actually does our facility management. So I've gotten around my engineering teams desperate to go build me something that's the greatest thing Microsoft's ever created.
Right.
I just say, no, I'm leveraging my partners' tools and
Right.
kind of get away from that. But it does put me, I feel, a little step back from visibility, because an internal tool that you can quickly get to a dashboard versus you got to log into your vendor's tool, and it's just like running 1,000 miles an hour. It's that extra step that you have to do that does make you feel a little disconnected.
Right.
If I'd had my own internal tool,
Right.
where you could pull up your internal web page and there's your dashboard, I could see that adding some value.
Yeah. So where do you guys see where you're looking for the future then, like as you move forward? Where do you guys see, I know you're leaning more technology. Are you changing your store locations? Keith, I know you guys have kind of tapped in the US, is that correct? Or?
Yeah, we've stabilized our domestic portfolio, but the refreshes and the new products are big, right? So rolling something out twice a year, to a store, to 100 stores, new products. There'll be something in the spring, there'll be something for holiday. I see that not changing. So I've quickly got to get to a regional approach, that can do it quickly, maintain quality, but have enough work to make sure that you're carrying and feeding your vendor base, because you don't want that to go stale if you don't happen to have a particular vendor that continuing to learn. So that's my challenge for the balance of the year is figuring out that regional model and checking all the boxes for us to get the quality, the speed, reduce the cost, and have a team that cares, like someone who's dedicated. 100%.
And Steve, the same. You see the future of where you guys are growing, a lot of it's with like you were saying at dinner last night regarding insurances and medical, and drives a lot of what you guys are thinking in the future. Is that?
Yeah, the changing industry as a whole, both on the healthcare and the retail front, which everyone in this room is feeling. I think from our perspective, two different fronts, right? We need to continue to spend money, make investments on refreshing the estate, if you will, right? So, because suddenly you wake up one morning and if you sort of skimp on that for 1 year, and you're in trouble. So I'll call it base business, but it's also really making sure that we're building a team and an approach and some internal processes, so breaking through some of the minutia, if you will, that allows for us to have a team that can pivot on a dime, right? So as the industry changes, as new formats come up, as we think about different things, we have a team that's ready to hit the ground running, right? So we no longer have the luxury of saying, oh yeah, 2 years from now, we'll be ready to, deal with the likes of what's happening within the retail industry. We have to do that tomorrow, and it sounds incredibly easy, but it's
speed's
not.
Killing me. That speed's killing me.
Yeah, it's really hard, right? So not everyone approaches their work the same way. So making sure, again, those partners, your internal teams, and quite frankly, even your leadership, to your point, right, understands that aspect of what does it look like to go fast in the future? Feels very different than it did 5 years ago, quite frankly.
And Chris, how do you see the Shinola brand? Is it more bricks and sticks? How are you guys looking for the future of expanding the brand?
Well, as the way the business really began it was a web-based business. We didn't have any bricks and mortar for probably the first three.
Yeah, you came from
call it 2.5 years of our business was word of mouth, a lot of web-based, and as we begin to really understand as a business what omni-channel, and you're going to hear this, whatever it is, we've now begun to view the customer experience from the minute that you, as a customer, may experience the brand. I remember, and I was telling you, the first time I ever saw a Shinola watch was on a billboard outside Milwaukee, and I live in Detroit. When I tell our marketing team that, and I said, the experience that we're providing is only, and they know this, but it's only a portion of that giant timeline of the beginning of the way people interact with our brand. So I don't know if I'm really answering your question, but I think what we're going to try to do is understand the bigger flagship concept, the smaller micro pop-up, smaller duration kind of things. Maybe we're testing a market, maybe we're testing a category-based store. Maybe there's no inventory. Maybe it's a showroom, or maybe it's a, hey, come on in and hang out with Shinola, and then if you want to buy something, log in on the website and buy it.
Yeah.
There are so many wide open options for the way not only our business but our department is going to operate over the next 2 years. There could be some 3D VR technology that's going to come out where nobody even has to leave the
I can help
house.
you with that.
Right.
Let's talk about that.
All right.
No, I think you guys, I think
Right,
all,
but where like I said, where you're not even going to leave the house and you feel like you're in the store. And is that a viable option for the touchy-feely environment that we have, where you want to come in and pick up a watch and put it on, and you're going to feel that leather, and you're going to sit on that bike, and you're going to put those headphones on? You can't do that
right.
as a customer on the website. And that's where really all of our business needs to understand that. And anybody in retail needs to understand that if you're not providing that for a customer, you might as well not be in the business.
Well, I think you guys, all the different, I don't think it shows that there's any right or wrong way. It's what works best for you as an owner, what works best for that rollout, that new store build. I apologize that I didn't allow enough time, or I know I'm running low on time. But for anybody out there with these great great folks that in their rollout, does anyone have a question for them, before we close, that how they're doing their rollouts, what you might have for any of them? I just wanted to open up to anybody if anyone had a question for any of these guys.
We're getting off easy?
Yeah.
Huh?
Not Lee
Easy.
Peterson, by the way, so.
Right.
Lee gets too disruptive, so.
All right, well, great.
There's a question over there.
there we go.
Oh.
Let me just bring the microphone to you.
I was just curious, how often do you guys refresh your stores? Is it every 5 years, 2 years, 10 years?
5 for us on principle, but we're trying to stretch it a little bit. So we start looking at stores and doing assessments at year 5, typically.
And we're, it's a bit different. We're in year 3 of a massive rollout, so, and it may be componentry part of the store, so it'll come together at one point, so. But it's really going to be an ongoing thing for us, just based on when these stores were built and the age of the fleet.
It's an interesting question, because I have 2 stores that I took precisely 2 months and I remodeled both of them.
Just really.
We are looking at maybe every 2 years, but it would be more like paint, color, things like that. If you're talking about a holistic remodel, I think we're talking maybe a 4 or 5 year program. But again, it really depends on the product mix. I think we found the design to be challenged from a number of visibility factors, and actually, strangely, a loss prevention factor, where the room was just completely cut off. You can't see back there, I can't. If I have a payroll challenge and I have 3 or 4 people on the floor and half the store is exposed, not only is that a bad customer experience, but it may be a potential risk. So we just said, all right, stop, and we chopped them up immediately.
All right, great.
Cool.
Well, I can't thank you guys enough. I think I wish you the best of luck. Michael, again, thank you for
Thank you guys.
getting us together. Everything we as owners, everyone makes it look easy. So we all here, we still go through the same trial and tribulations, and great ideas that we can bounce off each other. So really appreciate.
Thank
the
you guys for
opportunity.
sharing your programs, experiences, and
you.
you touched on a number of things too about the collaboration aspect of a lot of this, and that's what this event's all about. Collaboration inspires innovation, is what we like to say. So it's a nice segue to say, going into our business meetings next, it's all about finding great partners. You can't
Absolutely.
manage
Absolutely.
your programs without great partners.
Thank you,
so
Michael.
Thank you guys.
Thank you.
Thanks very much.